Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Coquitlam Public Library's author talk with Ethan Loud on his latest work, Once a Bitcoin Miner, the turmoil and scandal and turmoil in the cryptocurrency Wild West that just recently published in fall 2021. So tonight we're very happy to have Ethan with us to talk about his latest book.
Hi.
Ethan Loud is an accomplished journalist and author. So Ethan was an early investor in Bitcoin. So his previous book, Few Notes from a Pandemic, was named among the CBC's best Canadian nonfiction of 2020 and shortlisted for the Kobo Emerging Writer Prize. So Ethan is a former Reuters reporter and has served as a visiting journalist at the University of British Columbia. So his writing appeared in the Globe and Mail, the Guardian, the Toronto Star, the Washington Post, and regularly in the Financial Post as well. Ethan is in Toronto joining us right now. So let's welcome Ethan. Thank you for being with us, Ethan.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure.
So Ethan, maybe let's talk about your book. So first of all, maybe let us know why you want to write about this topic.
Right. So I think the very lazy and general answer is that I'm a guy who writes books, and writing books is what I do. But why specifically this one? I have seen lots of books that cover crypto. They either do it from a monetary policy perspective or a computer science perspective. But I think there is a whole other facet to this, that is the perspective of the human condition. And I don't think that is talked about enough. I haven't seen a book that does that. And so through this book, it's a narrative nonfiction, so it's very non-technical, and it's for someone who perhaps doesn't know crypto that well. And it's meant to read like a novel, but everything is true. And it's, I think, a much easier way for someone to get to know the subject.
So, so what would you like your readers to learn from your book?
I think one of the stylistic choices I made in the book was to have it in very much a Wild West tone. So it's heavily influenced by Westerns and Western books. And I think I did that because I talked about this human condition perspective on crypto just now. And I think it's very much like the Wild West. And I'm not the first to make that comparison. People have always called crypto the Wild West of finance. But where our conclusions differ is that I don't consider that comparison to be an insult. And I think for many reasons, and although the real Wild West, I think it's full of colonialism and brutality and injustice, but the idea of the West that people have in their minds, the Wild West of the movies and in the past, why people flock to the Wild West, I think it's very much reflected in the world of crypto, and why people they sought the West back in like the 19th or 18th centuries is I think the same reason people seek crypto nowadays.
So can you share with us, how did you get involved in cryptocurrency?
So this was back in 2012 or 2013. I think that was when I first heard of Bitcoin, and that was quite by chance. So I was still in university at the time, and my friends and we were basically, I don't know why we did it, but we decided to go onto the dark web. It was our first time. And as you know, on the dark web, it's an area of the internet that is unmarked by search engines. So lots of shady stuff goes on there. And among the most famous cases you might have heard about is the case of Ross Ulbricht. So he's an American. He ended up getting 2 life sentences because he ran this marketplace called Silk Road, where you can buy weapons and drugs. And we were looking at such websites, and Bitcoin, it was the medium of transaction on those websites. So this was almost 10 years ago. And when Bitcoin first came out, that was the only use case. And so that was how I But it did take me a whole year from first hearing about the name to actually buying my first few bits of Bitcoin.
I see. So what makes you so interested and passionate about this this technology?
Well, it's a lot of things, and I think it's like that proverb of lots of blind men trying to touch the elephant, and everyone touches a different part, and everyone sees something different in crypto. And I think, to me, I would go back to what I said earlier about how this realm is sort of like the Wild West, and the world of Bitcoin and crypto. It's the industry and the community. It's very self-contained. It's like a new world that just shot up out of nowhere. And I think, as a millennial, we live in a world where everything is thoroughly mapped out. It's not like 200 years ago where you can't you can't cross the ocean and escape to a new world. But I think to many people, this community represents that new world.
Oh, and also, even as you mentioned in the book, you mentioned that you attend like a conference in North Korea. Is there any memorable things that you can share with us, or any interesting people that you interact with?
North Korea.
Yes. So that was a very interesting trip. So
Oh, fucking ass.
Sorry, sorry, Ethan. If anyone's there, could you please turn off mute yourself so that Ethan can share his photographs? Thank you. Sorry, Ethan, please go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. So that was back in 2018 when the North Korea, of all places, announced that it was going to have a cryptocurrency conference. And the reason that North Korea is associated with crypto is because North Korea is subject to lots of sanctions. So it basically can't conduct lots of trade. And in this day and age, for a country to prosper, it must do international trade. And that's why North Korea is so poor. And crypto is theoretically a way out of the sanctions. It's a way to transact outside of the control of the global financial system. And so when North Korea announced that it was holding that crypto conference, that definitely piqued my interest immediately. And I just thought I had to go to that. So I did. And that was the wildest thing, because I thought it was, when you hear the word conference, you come up with an image in your head, right? You have an idea of what a conference is, but it was nothing like that. So when I went there, I discovered there were only, I think, 8 foreigners. So yeah, just 8 of us going in. And on the very first day, they told us, you guys aren't actually the participants. So the Koreans are the participants, but you guys are supposed to be the presenters, and you're supposed to present on crypto to the Koreans. And we weren't expecting that. So lots of people who presented, they basically made up all their presentations just a day or two beforehand. But there was this one person who was different from us, was actually supposed to present, and his name is Virgil Griffith, and he was quite high up in the Ethereum Foundation, and he ended up getting arrested by the FBI over his presentation. So that happened like half a year after North Korea, and that was definitely a big shock. And he's accused of teaching crypto to North Koreans by presenting in North Korea. And so my book depicts those days in North Korea, and he's actually getting sentenced in like 2 weeks.
Wow, what a big surprise! Wow. Yeah. So recently there has been a call for actions for social justice since basically for recently. Do you think the blockchain technology can help with that, or with any social justice issues?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you define social justice. But one thing I definitely see crypto doing is democratizing the whole concept of the metaverse. You've heard Facebook talk about that, right?
Yeah.
But I think we are already living in a metaverse. For example, so I'll tell you a story of Vitalik Buterin. So he is the creator of Ethereum, and he's a Canadian. And Ethereum, for those who don't know, it's like the second biggest. It's a platform for the second biggest cryptocurrency, and the story begins. He likes playing World of Warcraft, and he played it a lot. He trained very hard, and he got his character up to be on a really high level, and he can cast this like really powerful spell and deal a lot of damage. But one day he wrote that the company behind the game, they just decided to very arbitrarily just remove a lot of the power of that spell he worked so hard to attain. And he wrote, I cried myself to sleep that night. And you know, we may laugh at this story, but I think lots of people, to them, online worlds are very real. And you can work very hard in your online world and gain lots of skills in your games, but you're at the mercy of the company, and they can just, the company can just remove your powers. It's like if one day the government just says your driving license is invalid, and the governments can't really do that because we're quite lucky. We live in a world where we have rights and we have due process, but online we don't have any rights. A lot of things we hold very dear, like your Gmail account, your Facebook account, but you don't have any rights to them. Tomorrow, Google can say, we are going to kick you off the platform, and they don't need to give you a reason, and they are private companies, and you basically have no recourse. But those accounts, they're very important to you, right? You use them to conduct your daily business. And so I think virtual things, increasingly, they're becoming more and more important.
Yes,
and so one of the things crypto does is that the Ethereum, especially, so the goal of Ethereum, so it's a thing based on Bitcoin's technology, but what Bitcoin does for money, it wants to do for everything we do. It wants to create a world where we have online services like your Facebook, but there's no like Facebook controlling it. It's just users and users interacting with each other, so that these big companies, they don't hold power over us. And clearly we're not there yet, but I think that's one of the visions of crypto. And yeah, and I think that's if you want to talk about social justice, I think that's one of the things.
I agree with you. It's not uncommon to hear someone that is unblocked for some kind of weird reason or not able. So it's not uncommon. So I totally agree with you on that. Okay, so you also mentioned so it's truly amazing that you have finished writing on so different topics, because you finished a Bitcoin book, and also previously you have a book on a pandemic, like in such a short time. Can you share a secret? How can you be that productive and write that many topics in such a short time?
So it's actually not a secret. I simply cheated. So the Bitcoin book, the deal for that was struck in 2019. So I actually finished writing the book toward the end of 2019. And so that book was actually supposed to be out in 2020, but I ended up writing the pandemic book. So the Bitcoin book was pushed to 2021 instead. But yeah, the pandemic book actually, that was written in a quite a short period of time. That was, I think I wrote the whole thing in 2 months, and looking back, it's actually quite a hellish 2 months. I don't advise anyone to ever try to write a book in 2 months. It's not a pleasant thing to do.
Yes, I can imagine that. Yeah. Mentioning about your previous book, so is that was that a reason that you have to go back to China during that time? Like,
Right. So my other book, Field Notes from a Pandemic. So it began because in the beginning of 2020, I was supposed to go to China, and my grandfather at the time, he was dying, so I had to go see him. And the day I left, I can remember that was a day before the pandemic started. And how do you define when the pandemic started? I think I would look at it as the day the first city was locked down. So the entire city was sealed off, Wuhan. That actually happened when I was in the air. So I basically knew nothing until I touched down, and I basically saw. And back then, nobody was wearing masks as well. So when you land in Beijing and you walk out and you see everyone wearing a mask, it was quite a surreal sight. And yeah, that was definitely an experience.
an experience. You had the first-hand experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so as you all know, so what do you think of the NFT, like the non-fungible tokens? Because it has been so popular, it's stunning this year. So how would you compare it to other cryptocurrency like Ether? So how would you compare them? How would you define them? Think of that, I should say.
Right. So an NFT, so it's basically a way to ensure that virtual objects, they can't be simply duplicated. So yeah, when you can, of course, right click on an NFT and save as, but it's not the same thing. And the person who owns the NFT can prove that it's not the same thing. And basically, if we go back to what we talked about just now about Vitalik Buterin in World of Warcraft, he can. So World of Warcraft, it's like a role-playing game. You can be a wizard. You walk around. You can pick up lots of gold, and so the objects you own in the game, you don't actually own them. The gaming company owns them. They can take them away from you. But NFTs, they are basically like those objects you own in the game, but the company cannot take them away from you. And I think that right now the technology is not very mature, and so the whole of the crypto sphere is no more than 13 years old. So there aren't a lot of good use cases for NFTs yet, and there's a lot of absurdity in the space. But I think one day we will have really good use cases.
So like people comment that the Canadian law has been slow in responding to issues arising from the cryptocurrency. So what would you suggest the government officials to do anything, or what's the comment on that?
Well, I think what we do in Canada is that we generally copy the US. And the US recently, I think it's not so much that it has something against crypto, but I think it's just it's a reflection of how the attitude of the administration toward the entire tech sphere and the entire finance sphere, because the new head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Gary Gensler, he has been increasingly hawkish, and enforcement has been very strict. And I think we see that reflected in Canada as well, in how the OSC has been going after these companies. And I personally feel it's also not that surprising because of what happened with Quadriga CX, which I'm sure we've all heard about, an exchange that basically just imploded because its founder allegedly died and took to the grave the keys to all the crypto. And I actually met the guy, and I described that in the book. And so I think at the same time, when enforcement is so strict, I think lots of innovation might be driven out of the country, because we sometimes forget that Ethereum, one of the biggest names, that was founded by not just one Canadian, Vitalik Buterin. He had lots of co-founders, and 3 out of the 8 co-founders, they were Canadian. but even though they thought of the idea in Canada, when it came to execution, they moved away. And the head of the of Binance, which is like the world's biggest platform for buying and selling cryptocurrency, he is a Canadian as well. And you might have seen that in the news lately. He's officially, I think, the richest Canadian now. But yeah, he also moved away. And I think perhaps the government is looking at this too much as an enforcement issue, using the stick, but perhaps they should try using the carrot. And I think agencies other than like the OSC perhaps need to look at this issue more.
Okay. So do you have any advice or words of wisdom for any to share with the people who would like to invest in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies?
Oh yes. So I think you should take it in tiers and one step at a time. So if you think of the world of cryptocurrency as one level of weirdness above traditional investing, within crypto, you have established coins like Bitcoin and Ether, and then you have really sometimes absurd things like those coins based on dogs like Doge and Shiba Inu. And so for those who don't know, Shiba Inu, it's a coin that's apparently, it has been doing quite well, but it's a rip-off of Doge, which was created as a joke. So it's a joke based on a joke, and there are those things, and they are one level above Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I think if you are already doing traditional investing, and I think it's fine now, perhaps I even encourage you to get some Bitcoin or Ether. And if you're already in Bitcoin and Ether, maybe it's a good idea to look at other stuff within the crypto world. It's always good to jump one level, but maybe don't try to jump 2 levels at a time.
Even for the advice, totally makes sense. So just want to recommend anyone, if any questions, please feel free to send it to the comment feature. So we're gonna make sure Ethan have time to answer that at the end. So okay, so there's what do you find the term in terms of the argument? Some people argue that the Bitcoin has some harm to environmental because it loss of electricity. So what's your opinion on that?
I'm sorry, I think you cut out for a while. Can I get you to repeat that?
So I'm sorry. Okay, let me repeat again. So some people argue that against Bitcoin that it does harm to the environment because it takes up a lot of electricity. So what is your opinion on that?
Well, I think yeah, it probably does, but I think so does everything. I think everything we do uses up a lot of electricity and is harmful to the environment. But I do mean everything. So for example, if you stream the song Despacito, that actually uses as much electricity as 5 African countries put together. I think simply being alive, being a human being is bad for the environment. Yeah, and I don't think that we have a way to really do anything about it. It's not good or bad. It simply is.
Okay, thank you, Ethan. Oh, sorry if my audio sometimes cutting out. Sorry about that. So please let me know. Sorry about that. Oh, we got questions from the audience here. So they said, what exactly they want to know the definition of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Can you clarify with them, please?
Right. So a cryptocurrency is basically a type of money that doesn't have a central administrator. So it's basically entirely a user-to-user kind of interface, and so that there is no, when you send one unit to another person, that it happens between you and that person. There is no third party to process that. And that is based on this blockchain technology, and Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency. And yeah, so Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, but not all cryptos are Bitcoin.
So related to, oh, thank you, Ethan, for that. Related to your experience on your book, anything that you regret not having done it, or
anything I regret not having done?
Yeah.
Lots of things. So I think everyone has this regret. Even people who've made a lot of money. So I have this story. So I know this guy. He was an early investor in Ethereum, and he put $600 in it when it came out. And back then, one Ether was like $6 or something. And he eventually sold everything, and he made $60,000. And at the time, he was very happy. But if he held on to it, not even now, because when he told me this story, it was 2017. If he held on to it in 2017, it would have been that would have been like millions. So, right. So, what regrets do I have? I regret that I took like a whole year between when I first heard of Bitcoin to when I first bought, and I regret not buying more. And also this whole market, it goes in cycles, and it's very hard to time the market. So maybe I should have sold more when it was at the last top. And yeah, everyone has these.
Okay, thank you, Ethan. Okay, we got it. Okay, in addition to the questions, they also want to, besides the definition, so they want to know if the Bitcoin, and the cryptocurrency be considered socially and environmental responsible investing.
That's very interesting. I think it
Interesting
depends.
question, yeah.
I think it depends on what your definition of socially and responsible, socially environmentally responsible investing is. The carbon footprint of Bitcoin, it's no bigger than say than say Apple, or it's no bigger than say, yeah, I guess any other sector. If you think of the carbon footprint of the banking sector, yeah, that all the electricity that the banks use, all their servers, and how their buildings stay lit, everything I think is inherently harmful to the environment. So yeah, is it responsible? I think it depends on your definition of it.
Thank you, Ethan. So, and we got another questions. So, they ask you, what do you think of the Chinese cryptocurrency and how this affect value of the Bitcoin and US dollar?
So that's a very interesting question. I don't see this as affecting the value of Bitcoin by itself, and the Chinese cryptocurrency. It's not actually a cryptocurrency. It's something inspired by it, the central bank digital currency. I try to look at it in more of a geopolitical lens, and perhaps also it's also a human rights issue. So I think number one, we talked about sanctions earlier, and why is North Korea under so many sanctions, and sanctions that primarily led by the US, because the world uses so much US dollars. The US dollar is like the I think it's the 88% of international transactions are settled using US dollars. So because of the wide use of the US dollar, the US government exerts a lot of influence over how money is moved, and therefore they can control the flow of it, and therefore they can apply sanctions to North Korea. And so China's digital currency, it's basically a way around this US dominance. And we know China has been, trying to challenge the Western hegemony, and basically that's what China does. and people are saying that the Chinese digital currency, it's something that will chip away at the US financial dominance, and it will have an impact on the power of the sanction. And I think the US is probably quite unnerved by it, or at least some people are.
Okay. We got another questions. So they asked, is the blockchain technology finite? They wonder if this blockchain puzzle with the keys will run out of the creation of numbers. So it's a very techy questions, right?
I think what gives Bitcoin its value is that it is finite, that there are only 21 million Bitcoins available, and scarcity increases value, and scarcity is a way for objects to retain their value. But in terms of the blockchain technology itself, it doesn't have to be that way. That's just how Bitcoin is built. There are lots of other blockchains. Ethereum is a good example. It actually does not have a fixed supply, and Doge, I think Doge is even worse. By design, it doesn't have a fixed supply, because it's Doge is like a whole satire of this whole thing. And yeah, basically blockchain technology, I think it's pretty pliable. You can do whatever you want with it.
I see. Thank you. We got another questions again. So so someone asked, how does one get involved in investing in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency?
Well, I think the very easiest way, if you have space in your RRSP or your TSFA, there are ways to get ETFs based on Bitcoin, and I think there are even ETFs based on Ether. And you can also get exposure to it via buying stocks in crypto-related companies. Lots of Canadian companies, they are doing mining, and so that is a way to get exposure to it, while in a tax advantage way, and I guess in a way that if you are investing in traditional financial instruments, it's a way in which that will be familiar to you. And that's one way. And another way, and there's a school of thought that the way I just described, that's not real. You have to actually own your crypto, and that's definitely that is a little harder. You have to basically go to an exchange, one of these services to help you buy crypto, and you can usually store it in a wallet application on your phone. But this comes with a lot of risk as well. And why people say what is the attractiveness of Bitcoin? It's that you hold the Bitcoin and nobody can take it away from you unless they know your password. So a lot of power comes with a lot of responsibility. So if you want to go that route, you have to be responsible for storing your own Bitcoin and keeping it safe from all the people trying to steal it.
Ethan, can you share? I remember I saw some of your interviews that you mentioned that a girl that had to escape, and then she had a Bitcoin, and then she can have a new life. Can you mention that? Or? Oh
yes, I told this story. So yeah, I guess I told it too many times. So there's there's a young woman in Afghanistan. So this was back when all the refugees were trying to leave, when Afghanistan was falling to the Taliban. And when refugees leave Afghanistan, they don't get to take their money with them most of the time. And I don't think that's talked about enough. It's something missing in a lot of reportage because of how bad the banks are, how bad the currency is. When they leave the country, they leave penniless. But there was this young woman, she had Bitcoin because this was back in a period of, there was a period of westernization in Afghanistan when people were going to schools. So she had some, and a lot of them, they don't leave in very good ways. They don't leave via the official ways. So she had to cross Iran and Turkey, which aren't very good places. And her ship sank in the Mediterranean. And when she arrived in Germany, she had nothing but the clothes on her back. But she had Bitcoin because she memorized her passphrase, and that's basically all you need. So she had 2 Bitcoins, and she was able to fund, and this was a while ago, so 2 Bitcoins is not as much as now, but it's still a lot of money, and she was able to fund a new life for herself in Germany. And yeah, so it illustrates how this is a way to store value that is, I guess, they call it anti-fragile. It remains what it is, no matter the external circumstances.
What an amazing story. Yeah. So, we got another questions. So they asked you, did you learn the computer science behind blockchain while writing about this book? And also any other tips on how to understand who's monitoring the multiple computers that validate the chain, or is there any risk of corruption at that level? Wow, many questions.
I think that's I recently watched Band of Brothers and Second World War show, and one of them was talked about a story to his grandson. His grandson asked, "Granddaddy, were you a hero?" And he says, "No, but I serve with heroes." So I'm probably not an expert on this, but I spoke to lots of experts, and it really depends on the specific blockchain. Usually, and the bigger they are, the bigger the crypto, the safer they are. And that's because the mining network is bigger. And yeah, people criticize Bitcoin for its electricity use, but one of the uses of that electricity is to secure the network. So how do you take control of Bitcoin? And if someone controls the Bitcoin network, you can forge a transaction, and it basically renders the whole thing useless. To do that, you have to control 50% of the mining power, and which is expensive beyond imagination. It's virtually impossible. And if someone actually has that much resources, that much power and money to control half of the mining network, they might as well mine themselves, and they'll make a lot more money that way. And so Bitcoin is designed that way, to use all that electricity so that it is forever secure, at least theoretically. But for smaller coins, these are called 51% attacks. When you either through hacking or something, you're able to control 51% of the network. And this has happened several times, because we have thousands and thousands of different cryptocurrencies, and basically anyone can create a cryptocurrency out of thin air. And so these other coins, they are quite easily manipulated.
Okay, thank you, Ethan, on that. So another standard question: what do you see cryptocurrency in another 10 to 20 years? The future questions.
Well, so I was once asked to give a price prediction on Reuters TV, and I was disastrously wrong on that. So I will not give a price prediction, but I will predict other things. I think we will see more of what we have seen in South America. El Salvador, in the last year, it became the first country to have Bitcoin as legal tender. And I think we will see more countries, and particularly in that part of the world, adopt it, because I think we have a stable or a relatively stable financial system here. And I think we often take that for granted. We think that is something that endures and stays forever. But in the past year, we've seen headlines from Argentina, for example, where one headline is the government is going to step in to freeze grocery prices for 90 days. That's just so wild and bizarre that they have to do that, because grocery prices, they're just spiraling out of control. And in Venezuela, people are shaving off gold flakes to pay for things because their currency is just becoming worthless by the day. And there's unfortunately a lot of that going on in South America, and I think we'll see more Bitcoin adoption there. And at the same time, we talked about this earlier, this China central bank digital currency. China has been, I think, very exceptional in this respect. It's like the first major economy to actually not just pursue this, but they have a working product, and you can actually find the wallet for its central bank digital currency in the App Store now. And I think it'll be very widely used in China. And there is that geopolitical impact we talked about earlier. And there is also this human rights thing. I think it will give the government a much better and bigger way to monitor its people's transactions and control them in a way that they haven't been able to achieve now. And I think, yeah, those are probably the, oh, and also the metaverse that we've talked about. I think those three things they'll be the biggest trends to watch.
Of course, yeah, the metaverse, yes. So just to let you know, if anyone have any other questions, please feel free to send it to the comments. So we want to make sure even have time to answer your question. So I have another one. So in terms of the future, so do you see that Bitcoin will be replaced or compete by the central bank digital currency, or can it replace cash?
Yeah, not at all. I don't think Bitcoin is designed for that, and I don't think the way people use Bitcoin now, I don't think it will. Is the sort of use that will see it replacing traditional everyday money. That will have a place in society, and that's not going to go away. I think Bitcoin right now, people see it as an inflation hedge, as a store of value, as a bit of an investment instrument, and as a replacement to gold. I do see it as perhaps eating into the space that is traditionally occupied by gold. And I don't mean gold as used in jewelry or metals, but gold in the investment sense, because most gold, it's bought and sold on paper these days. So gold futures, ETFs, and traditionally people buy these when they anticipate uncertainty, because unlike a company's shares, unlike a country's currency, it's gold. Traditionally, it's thought of as to be immune to geopolitical factors or economic storms. I think Bitcoin, it might become more of that.
I see. Thank you for the advice. So I guess one last question for me. Can we order your book with Bitcoin?
Yes. I actually went through a lot of trouble to make that happen, but that is possible. So the store actually emailed me that they changed their link, so that actually isn't an easy link. I can, you know what? I can type a message here, right? I'm just gonna pull that link. Yeah, let me just do that real quick.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, let me tell you a story of how I tried to make this happen. I paid someone to come up with emails of every single bookstore in Canada. And I asked them, like, would you be open to accepting Bitcoin for the book? And none of them said yes. So this isn't a bookstore, but it's a crypto shop. But they've decided to stock my book.
Oh no. Okay, so well, so if anyone have any questions, it's time, and please send the questions in the chat feature, and Ethan will be able to help you with that or answer your comments. Oh, I also want to mention, so I'm going to send the link, or you'll be able to access Coquitlam Library as the print copy and also the e-copy for Ethan's new book, and also the field book from pandemic. So I will send the link here. So, or you can also welcome to buy a copy of the book to support Ethan. So so if you have any questions, please feel it's time to drop in the comment feature. And
oh wait, I didn't send it to everyone, eh?
Yeah. Yep. So thank you, Ethan, for the link. So everybody can see it. So that's great. So if anyone have any questions, please feel free to send it in the future or speak out now. So Ethan, so is there anything you want to share with us with your book, Ethan?
No, I guess that's it. You've been very thorough, and I think we've covered lots of ground. Virgil Griffith, I should say again, his sentencing is coming up on the 2nd, and I'm actually gonna be in New York to witness that. So that's something.
Oh, one last question. I got a question from so we got a question that they asked, where does the money come from that where does the money come from that is used to pay Bitcoin miners? Are you asking okay. Oh, is that they're just asking where does the money come from that's used to pay the Bitcoin miners?
Right. So the miners are basically people who facilitate transactions on the network. So they come from two streams. Well, one is the transaction fees that people pay, and the other is the new units being created when the mining process happens. And so new Bitcoins are being created all the time when people mine, and the new ones that are created goes to the miners.